you to confirm. So like everyone's video has been turned off since we started recording, so you'll have to start your video and mic again. Yeah, so I'll kick it off. So my name is Vader. I've been the lead of the Department of Mutant Transport at Blazing Swan since 2023. In 2024, I had the opportunity to travel to Burning Man to participate in the Burning Man Regional Lead Co-Learning Program at the Department of Mutant Vehicles. As part of this program, I was able to participate in the DMV's review of their mutant vehicle applications, and then later travel to Burning Man to observe how they run the DMV at Burning Man. And to say it was overwhelming was an absolute understatement. The scale of things they do there is amazing. One of the big things that I took away from that was a conversation with Chef Juke about the history and evolution of mutant vehicles at Burning Man and how they had to make a transition from kind of art cars to a very more specific mutant vehicle category. So I'll throw that over to Chef Juke now. Juke, if you could introduce yourself and let us know about you, and then, yeah, move into the history of mutant vehicles at Burning Man for us, please.
Sure. So my name is Patrice Mackey, but most folks around Burning Man know me as Chef Juke. It's a play name that came from my early days with going to Burning Man. It's a long story, which I won't take into that. I have been attending Burning Man in Black Rock City in Nevada since 1994. Sometime in March, I think, this coming March, I will hit the moment where I will have been going to Burning Man half my life, which it's just because I'm an old geezer. So I'm one of those folks that they call a crusty old burner. So I've been going for a long time. And I think the very first thing, at some point, maybe I'll pull up my very first moment in Black Rock City in 1994. The first thing that I found after seeing the Burning Man statue itself was an art car. An art car that was a little boat car that was a boat on a Lincoln Continental. It was half Lincoln Continental, half cabin cruiser. And I went, what the heck was that? And seems like I've been stuck on them ever since. So I started attending in 1994, and in 2002, I started volunteering for the Department of Mutant Vehicles, and about 6 years later, was asked to join the DMV Council, which is a small group of people that volunteer year-round, helping organize the DMV for the event. And the way mutant vehicles came about at Burning Man, and just to be clear, and I'm assuming that everybody knows things, but maybe I shouldn't. The Department of Mutant Vehicles was the name they came up, not because we had an idea of what mutant vehicles were, other than it just, because here we have the Department of Motor Vehicles, mutant sounded cool enough to match. But basically, at Burning Man, when I first started coming, there were fewer than 1,000 people at our event, but it was doubling every year. So by 1996, there were maybe getting close to over 5,000 people, and the first few years, there was no restrictions on driving. It was pretty much a free-for-all. And in 1996, there were a number of issues that happened, including some serious injuries that happened due to motor vehicles driving around. And for the 1997 event, they determined, look, somebody's really going to get hurt. We really need to restrict driving during the event. And so that was the first year that they basically said, okay, we're not going to have people just drive. Once they get here, you can drive, park, and then it's mainly going to be walking and bicycles. But by that point, there had become a tradition of people bringing their art cars. And so what they did was they decided we want to keep having this tradition of art cars continue. And so they created the Department of Mutant Vehicles. And pretty much what it was is if you had a decorated vehicle, you just needed to get a sticker. Come to the DMV, we'll put a sticker on your vehicle, and that'll let you drive around as you had before. It was very casual, and I don't have numbers for how many we did or they did the first few years, but that's where the DMV started. By the time I joined in 2002, what had started as just a haphazard tradition of people who had art cars being attracted to coming to Burning Man had sort of reversed, so that Burning Man was now really attracting more people who were associating the art cars they had seen in pictures and in the news at the event. And so at that point we started having hundreds of vehicles each year show up to get license. And that created the real interest in people to build. They would see, it inspired people to build more mutant vehicles or more art cars to come to the event. By the mid-aughts, we were now getting far more applications for people to bring vehicles than we felt was safe to have. We did a lot of negotiation Burning Man did a lot of negotiation with the BLM, which is the Bureau of Land Management. Burning Man happens on public land that's overseen by a group, a government agency called the Bureau of Land Management. And they started indicating they were really concerned with how many vehicles were driving around at the event. So we were asked to limit that. So we were aiming to have no more than 500 vehicles, and we were getting almost 1,000 applications to bring vehicles at that time. Now, at that time, it was pretty much any reasonably decorated vehicle. A really interesting paint job would pretty much qualify, but it'd have to be really interesting. It'd have to be a little more than a paint job. But at that point, we determined that we really needed to have a way of creating a criteria that limited the number of people that we could invite. So we weren't having to slog through anybody who painted their car an interest. If you painted your car pink, that really wasn't going to be sufficient to qualify for an invite, just to help us keep the numbers reasonably low. And so what we did was we discussed about what were the vehicles that were the most compelling, what were the vehicles that were most interesting, how could we craft a criteria that raised the bar a bit to define what vehicles really qualified for an invite. And also, we wanted to ideally make the criteria such that we didn't feel like we were just judging everybody's art, that it was really an art critique. We wanted to make the criteria the bar, not, oh, we like this color versus another. And so we created the subset of art car called Mutant Vehicle. And the main key things was that it had to be more than a paint job. It had to be something that significantly altered, either the vehicle was built from scratch or it was significantly altered and not recognizable as whatever the base vehicle had been. And so one of the things we discussed when we review our vehicles is, if you look at the vehicle, if it's a vehicle that is supposed to be a turtle, if you look at it and say, oh, here comes a golf cart decorated like a turtle, versus saying, oh, look, here comes a turtle, if your first thought was golf cart, then it may not be mutated enough to meet the criteria. I'm going to pause there for a minute. That's how we got to the point of mutant vehicle versus art car. Now, to be clear, every mutant vehicle is an art car, but not every art car is a mutant vehicle. Mutant vehicle is just a subset, a type of art car that is more altered than just decorated. So I'm going to stop there and say, anybody have any questions or things they'd like to know so far about that?
I was just gonna say, yeah, if people have questions as we're going through, just click the raise your hand button in the chat and or throw it in the comments. But yeah, does anyone have any questions about that process or comments on that one?
Not so much a question, but yeah, thank you for your time and getting up so early. I've loved hearing about the progression on how things are going, and in my mind, I'm automatically slotting it in to our situation because we're not population pressure of mutant vehicles. We're encouraging, but we're trying to encourage them to go into a artistic direction to show all sorts of things, and that's starting to happen. So it's only been a few years I've been involved with what we're doing, and automatically just hearing your progressions and hearing information on when you first see a vehicle, what do you see? Do you see something dressed as that, or do you that? That resonated with me because that's been something that I haven't been able to explain to people when I'm saying what we want to achieve with a mutant vehicle. So basically, not as a question and just going over what you've already said, but thank you for that, and it's already given me some helpful information. And I'm the safety lead. I work with Rob, and I'm under safety, and the best thing that we've got going is we've got an open discussion so that everything gets through that should get through, and we help the people as well. So, yep, across to everyone else.
It's just a comment on that. Juke, we discussed this a bit at Burning Man. You guys don't actually do safety inspections there for liability reasons.
Right.
We do safety inspections here for liability reasons.
Right. So yeah, and I'll be real clear about it. We make it very clear to the mutant vehicle owners that when we license their vehicles, that they are responsible for ensuring that their vehicle is safe to operate. We do not take on any of that liability, and so therefore, other than looking for common sense safety issues, if an example is there was a mutant vehicle a number of years ago that had a beautiful metal art sculpture piece that had wings, and it was sort of cut metal, and right up in the front, one of the tips of the wings, lower tips of the wings, came down to about 5'7", and it literally was right at my eye height, and it was this really just sharp piece of raw metal, and it was right near the front. Literally, if the car came a little too close to a pedestrian, it would slash their eye. And I walked up to it and said, yeah, you're going to need to do something about this because this is just too dangerous. So if there's obvious dangerous items, something, a loose platform or stairwell, we can point that out and say, hey, we can't license this until you fix it. But what we don't do is we don't give, when we are licensing a vehicle, we are not saying we certify this vehicle is safe, because we're not safety engineers, we're not safety experts. There are two exceptions that happen with our vehicles, because we do have vehicles that have flame effects and we have vehicles that have lasers. And we have separate teams that are experts in those areas. And if a vehicle has flame effects or it has lasers, they have to get a separate inspection by those teams and be certified by those teams. They get a separate little license sticker that says this laser has been approved for use at Burning Man, or this the flame effects have been approved. So we there are safety inspections that happen for those two features, but not a general stamp of approval saying we believe this vehicle is safe to operate. That responsibility lies with the mutant vehicle owner. And when they apply, we let them know this, And one of the last things they do before we inspect their vehicle is they sign an actual legal agreement that they get a copy of, we have a copy of, that basically says this. I'm going to be responsible for this. Wesley has a question.
Turn my mic on. With that, that's actually really, really good to know. I just think, do you get many people that try and not get their stuff certified and just drive on as if nothing's happened? Like, do you find that happening much at Burning Man?
Well, there's a few things with that. There are people who drive a little bit. The one time that people drive without having gotten licensed usually is the last 2 nights of the event, the Man Burn and the Temple Burn. In part because, hey, it's dark, a whole bunch of people are driving, everybody's sort of focused in looking at the man, whatever, and sometimes people will, the likelihood of them getting caught is minimal. We see that. Enforcement is a whole other thing.
That was a related question.
The DMV ourselves, we do not do enforcement, technically. Yep. If I see something and I do drive around, I'll do something about it, or I will, holler at people. But the Black Rock Rangers and law enforcement are the folks who deal with vehicles behaving badly, if there are. And usually it's somebody reporting to us that they saw a vehicle doing something, and we will follow up. But we don't go patrol and say, this and that.
You don't see much of it happening?
Sorry?
You don't see much of it happening? You don't see many people trying to...
I think where we see people, we don't see people just driving around, and there's a few things for that. A vehicle that's not an art car is very, driving around is very noticeable.
Yeah,
so
obvious.
That doesn't happen. But the other part is that you can't bring in into the event at gate, you can't bring in if you're driving a vehicle that's decorated, that's fine. But you can't bring in like a vehicle on a trailer without an invite letter from us, meaning, so you can't bring in a secondary vehicle. So you can't bring in a golf cart or something on a trailer you can't bring any secondary vehicles without an invite. And that's, for us, I should also note, the DMV, in addition to mutant vehicles, we also license vehicles for persons with disabilities. We call them accessibility vehicles. So they go through a similar but much more rubber stamping process where they do apply and they just have to have some sort of government issued disability, proof of disability, and we will invite them in their vehicle. We see a little more, I'll
just jump in there, just to make a comment. We do a similar thing at Blazing Swan. If people have accessibility needs, we will license pretty much any vehicle for them to drive on site. We don't have a huge number of them, but that is an option for people that require it.
Actually, that reminds me. Sorry, I haven't used Microsoft Teams in a bit, but I was going to share. I'll share one or two things, but I believe I just shared a document. This is some of our data for how many vehicles we've licensed. Our data only goes back to about 2009 on this sheet. 2009, we had 921 vehicles applied. We invited 782, but there's a lot of little data in there that's kind of interesting in terms of how many vehicles we invited each year.
Yeah, so that was going to be one of my next talking point was just mutant vehicle numbers. I guess if you could just give a summary of kind of last year, like how many vehicles you had apply to come to the event, how many were approved.
So our average, first thing, one of the things we started noticing, we were really worried about how many vehicles we were inviting. and mainly because we wanted to be ahead of the BLM. We never wanted to get to a point where we had too many vehicles for the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management. So we were always being very cautious and trying to keep the numbers down, and it was really challenging because we used to do sort of an almost immediate invite or review each week. Invites would come or applications would come in, we'd invite, and then all of a sudden the numbers would get high, and we were worried about how many we invited because we only wanted to invite the number of vehicles we thought would show up. And you can't quite see it here because by 2009 we had our process in, but we started to realize over time that we had a pretty consistent 20, now it's what, 22, well, 23% no-show rate. So 23% of the vehicles we invited each year didn't end up showing up on Playa. And we decided to start taking that, once we had a few years under our belt, we started taking that number into consideration for how many we invited. So our intention is to have, really no more than 650 vehicles driving at the event now. So our limit, we created a limit of the number of vehicles we invite, and the limit is 800. So we will invite up to 800 vehicles each year. But we still get under that 650 number that we actually haven't even reached since 2015.
Yeah, and I think that very much kind of follows our numbers as well. So like our numbers are way smaller, but I think last year we had 41 applications and maybe approved vehicles, and we had 33 show up. So that's around a 20% no show rate. But also, just interestingly, what's the total tickets at Burning Man? Is it about 800,000 thereabouts, depending on.
Yeah, so I think we had 75,000 this last year, yeah, so 75,000. We, our limit is, it's been prior to the last year's week 80,000. 80,000 is our limit of tickets we can sell, and we invite 800 vehicles. So there's a correlation there.
Approximately 1%.
Right, and that's I use that
often. It's very, very similar to our numbers. Like I think we have 3,500 ticket sales, and we've been consistently in the mid 30s for Mutant vehicles. So around 1% of participants are represented by Mutant vehicles.
And I often use that in talking to people about the privilege of bringing a Mutant vehicle. Yes, you're in rare air. If you are an invited Mutant vehicle, you are in rare air. You are one of the 1%ers. And there's some stuff that goes along with that. It is, well, we can talk about some of that as we go along. Where was there was something I was going to say.
Well, just with that, like I said, with our previous conversation about, like, once you get to the point of you have so many vehicles on site, then you have to start requiring them to meet a certain level of mutation. I think once we get over 35 to 40 Mutant vehicle applications consistently every year, we're going to have to be asking for more Mutant vehicles than just the yard car kind of requirements, and being more selective. Like we'll actually have to put a limit on how many vehicles we can have.
I mean, it's great when you don't have that limitation. Enjoy it when you can. It's also nifty to see, what we saw. And again, I've been around and watched this happen, both as a participant and then eventually as somebody involved in the process. But it's been very interesting with a lot of things in Burning Man of watching how year over year more people get inspired by what they see. They come and experience and they see, and then they go, oh gosh, I wanna make an art car. I saw some really cool things. I could do something like that. It's really been, I mean, on a personal level, it's just been really inspiring. It's been really, an amazing journey, of one that I didn't even necessarily realize that I was taking as I was taking it. Now as a Gosh.
Yeah, let's do a little segue here and tell us about your car that you built this year, because I understand, like,
Ah,
I know you've been involved in some other builds, but this is the first time you've taken on a project yourself. So
yeah.
tell us about that
Well,
and your
okay.
experience and how it went.
So, a number of years ago, in 2014, so 11 years ago, after having been working with the DMV for 12 years, I said, well, this is silly. I really should build my own mutant vehicle. And so I said, gee, I know a lot about mutant vehicles, and I've been a woodworker, a hobby woodworker, but I would really have to start from scratch. And I said, okay, that's cool. I will, I've been doing some woodworking in my garage, but I'm going to start figuring out what I need to learn to be able to build a mutant vehicle. So I started building out my shop, and it took 11 years. Basically, because my shop became the project. I ended up making a little makerspace in my garage, all with the original intention of I'm going to build a shop and learn how to, machine and metalwork and stuff to be able to make a mutant vehicle. And I got kind of distracted for 10 years by making a shop that other people came and used to make their mutant vehicles. And it took till this year till I actually got my own. But I've had a camp. My camp is called Swiss Space Bar, and it's because a number of years ago met some folks, a great group of friends from Switzerland who all come over for Burning Man, and they took over our village's bar and created this bar that has a theme of well, it's called the Swiss Space Bar. So think cows in spacesuits in space, and a lot of things surrounding that. So um, this year we decided to try and make a mutant vehicle, and we broke all of the advice that I normally give to mutant vehicle owners, which was, hey, plan it, start it the year before, uh, really be sure you're ready and you give yourself enough time. Now, our application process, our application or registration for mutant vehicles ends on April 15th, and the event is at the end of August. We bought the base vehicle for our vehicle, I think March 31st. So like 2 weeks before the 2 weeks before the registration deadline. And so I basically had 2 weeks to come up with a design based on our vehicle, and then ended up being like 2 months to make it. But we made a I'll find a link that I can share. We made a janky vehicle that is a kind of spaceship. Uh, um, uh, that the way I describe it and is a cross between. I don't know if you're familiar with the very old. Well, the TV show that the cartoon show The Jetsons. So something across from what you would find at The Jetsons, the very old American TV show The Beverly Hillbillies Jalopy, and a carnival ride. All right, where am I? I'm trying to. There we go. So we call it the Raclette One, and sharing a link here of some of the photos of what we started with and kind of how we got there. But we found this old airplane tug at a local airport about an hour and a half up from me. A 1944 or 1942 World War II era airplane tug, and these were ubiquitous all over the world on U.S. air bases, towing planes around. So it's got an interesting history. And we thought, well, there's a solid little vehicle that has been driving since 1942, and strong little engine, and could probably carry a lot of weight. So that's what we got and what we stripped. And I need to put some more photos in there. There's some video in there that show the final product a little better. Oh yeah, I really need to get more pictures on that.
It would have been a great vehicle for our last event because our theme was cosmic coincidence, so very much space themed.
So it was tomorrow today. I just got some more parts for it. Some actual rocket parts for it, and some ex NASA from the Apollo program parts they'll put on it. But and it was a really interesting. It was definitely a great experience. I think because I was my mom had some health issues, so I had to travel down to California from my home in Oregon. So I really had less time than I thought that I would have. So I thought I had 3 or 4 months, and I had barely 2. But I learned about the time frames, the frustrations, and trying to get things done. I literally put the last weld on the vehicle 45 minutes before we loaded it on the trailer to take to Burning Man. So I learned, a lot, and I was very public. A lot of the mutant vehicle owners, one of my jobs for the DMV is I'm the main communication person. So most of the mutant vehicle owners know my name from emails I've sent. I participate on the Facebook pages, etc. And so I made it pretty clear. Oh yeah, I'm doing my first one. I got a lot of, ribbing and stuff, but it was really fun. A lot of support, and I definitely now can say that I feel the joy and the pain that people have expressed to me over the years that they experience, and it's now I'm up getting ready to do more mutation and get the 2.0 version out for next year.
Right. Thanks for that one. Next thing I kind of wanted to talk about was mutant vehicle costs. I know at Burning Man, some of the vehicles get pretty big budgets.
What
do you think would be an average budget, kind of for an average mutant vehicle there? And then from there, let's talk about what's the most extravagant, bullshit, ridiculous thing you've seen, just for fun.
Okay. So, when people ask me, "Oh, how much does it cost to build a mutant vehicle?" My answer is more. It costs more. Now that's from the builder side. I can tell you absolutely I think my little vehicle went 5 times over the budget of what I thought I was going to spend on it. But the thing is, I'll tell you about, first off, from the DMV's point of view, we don't care how much people, spend on their mutant vehicle. We don't take their cost into consideration when we're reviewing vehicles. And we have said no, and we have not invited some vehicles that people clearly spent a lot of money on. We've also been accused at times from people who we said no to their vehicle. You'll only, you have to spend $1 million in order to get to build a vehicle that the DMV will invite. And I can definitely demonstrate that is not true. There is a misperception. There's a perception bias that people have when they see so many articles and videos showing the biggest, most amazing mutant vehicles at the event. But those are really we invite 800, and maybe there's 30 to 40 huge $1 million vehicles out there.
Yeah, they'd be a minority. And
right.
Would you say a majority of the vehicles are just home built, personal?
Absolutely. Over the half of the vehicles that we invite are smaller than 10 people vehicles, and most of those are based on golf carts or ATVs. Most of the vehicles we invite are small, not unlike mine. They're small, 10 people or less they hold in terms of size, less than 15, 20 feet. That's what most of the mutant vehicles are. And we're actually having discussions on putting a moratorium on the huge party barges that come with the DJ platforms and have world-class DJs on them. We've been having discussions about this for a few years, because just like every other aspect of Burning Man, where people come, they see something and they get inspired, there have been folks who've been saying, "Oh, I got money and I'm going to build a $1 million vehicle to have big DJs come and play on." And the proliferation of that has started to be a concern, because in some ways, when you have more of these vehicles going out to, we have sort of a huge area out in the deep playa, where we kind of, if people are going to set up for multiple hours of playing, that's where we want to have them, simply so we can make sure they're not just going in random places and a few thousand people show up and they don't have porta potties nearby to go use, and it becomes a mess. But it's also been impacting the nature of the event, because we're not a music festival, even though music has been a component of the event for many years. And there's a concern that the more if we are keep encouraging people to build more and do more of that, it's taking people away from the main part, the city part of the event, and the more direct participant to participant interaction, and it becomes more of a spectator type relationship that happens in the
and this touches on another subject that I wanted to talk about, was mutant vehicles and exclusive
Yeah.
being exclusive. That's the word.
Okay. So
I feel like once they get to a certain point, that they're not necessarily available for the general public to participate with them. And that's the thing that I'm really trying to encourage at Blazing Swan with mutant vehicle owners is, especially if they're receiving grant funding, because we are actually providing funding for mutant vehicles,
right,
is to make sure that they make the effort to go out and offer people rides, and to be interactive, and to be, radically inclusive,
Absolutely. And we have a few challenges with that. So now some of the challenges are perception. And the perception is that, after as more and more mutant vehicles started coming, and also along the lines of some of them got a little fancier and people were putting more into them, there started becoming also this perception that they were very exclusive. And these are usually some of the bigger ones, and the ones that are the ones I was just describing, like the large sound mutant vehicles. Now, some of it is absolutely accurate. There are people who brought mutant vehicles just to be for their friends or their camp and to show off things, and they don't want strangers on their vehicle. And there has been that. It's hard to define how much of that is actually happening and how much of it is other factors. And here's an example. As one mutant vehicle owner said, "Hey, I've got this 30-foot mutant vehicle. We have 150 people on board, or whatever. We're driving we're heading out to the deep playa, or we're heading from place to place. People try to flag us down all the time. Well, if we stopped for every single person that flagged us down, we'd never get anywhere, because we'd get 5 feet and stop, and 5 feet and stop. And we only have so much room on our vehicle for passengers." And the DMV's guidance is, we ask that mutant vehicle owners give rides whenever possible, and it is safe for them to do so. We don't mandate that they must. And this again gets to a liability thing. We can't tell somebody that they must give other random people rides. There's two things were on that. One, if we said that they all had to do that, A, we take on the liability if somebody who's drunk gets on there, or A, we take on some liability if somebody who's drunk gets on and causes a problem. Also, um, there's some weird things with U.S. law that if we say that the mutant vehicles are public transportation for everyone, there's a weird thing where we would be saying we have a transportation system and would have to adhere to a whole bunch of really bizarre laws that and requirements that we don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. It's not likely, but it's a
So
weird thing, and that's why
just to interject there, that happened to us in 2022 event, was it? Our local council that oversees our event, they kind of set the rules and standard. They decided that mutant vehicles at the event would be classed as amusement park rides, and that all mutant vehicles would need to be certified as such.
Right.
And so, unfortunately, that year we were not able to have passengers on mutant vehicles. We've since then resolved that issue, but yeah, that's
right. There's things that you come up with because hey, these events we do, they're not they don't fall easily into categories that governmental agencies and bureaucracies are used to. So the thing is that with these bigger and more elaborate mutant vehicles, so yes, there are some that we know cost more than $1 million, and and there are a lot of perception things that come along with that. I know a gamut of mutant vehicle operators. Like one of my favorite mutant vehicle owners. He built his vehicle in conjunction with an artist who's made a number of mutant vehicles, and his vehicle is well over $1 million, and it's an amazing piece of work. And he will drive around and give ride. It doesn't have very many seats, like 6 seats, but he will drive around and give a ride to anybody, and he'll just drive up in this big stainless steel vehicle. His vehicle's built by a fellow named Henry Chang. And if you look him up of Henry Chang and Burning Man, you will see some of his amazing work. They're all stainless steel vehicles, and they're incredible works of art. But this guy, Tony Bag of Donuts, his name, but he'll drive up and just like, hey, want to ride? And people are just amazed because they think that anybody who had a vehicle this nice wouldn't just give rides to random strangers. And he just loves doing that. And I just absolutely give him all the the praise. There's not a lot we can do about perception. As I said, what we can't.
I know one thing they do at Burning Man, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a public bus route, essentially. Like they have pickup points.
Well, yeah, actually, to be honest,
I can't remember what it's called. It's like a kind of reliable.
Yeah, we call it bait. Well, we called it a few things. At first, it was called BAIT, which stood for Burn Area something Transit. It was a takeoff on the San Francisco transit system called BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit, and Burn Area Imprecise Transit. And what we did was we set up the points around the city where people would run routes on a regular basis. As a volunteer, mutant vehicles would sign up to sort of do this. Now, even though it was all volunteer, we had to be really careful about our language. The challenge was that people didn't really. The vehicles would go, but there weren't a lot of people waiting at these spots, and we found out that at Burning Man, people being at a specific place at a specific time, thinking that a vehicle might show up for them, it just somehow did not get the amount of participation as we thought that it might.
Yeah, so we've tried to do a similar thing at Blazing Swan, and I found very much the same of just like, yeah, trying to plan for people and things to be at one place at one time just does not work.
Right.
I think we're very much going with the encouraging either flagging down vehicles or people actively going and asking people, oh, do you want to ride? You're walking from general camping to the Sound Alley. Do you want to ride? So yeah, I found trying to actually organize having organized transport options just doesn't work because trying to organize things.
It's we thought it would be in its best year. It gave a lot of rides to people, but more often than not, it was like they'd be driving along and getting ready to stop at a place where we had a little stop sign, like a bus stop sign, and there wouldn't be anybody there, but there would be somebody, nearby, like, hey, you want to ride? What? Oh, what? Oh, okay. They would pick up people, and they did take people on rides, but it wasn't as designed, and the design just didn't really work.
So maybe a better way of encouraging interactions and participation would just be to have mutant vehicle owners actively go out and when they see people walking, go, "Hey, do you want to ride?" It's a very simple solution,
And that's what we've encouraged people to do. In our criteria and in all of our information we have online, we absolutely encourage people to do it, and we also give some credit in our criteria. It says interactivity is one of the things that will help get your vehicle invited. It's not the main thing. It's kind of like on a exam. If your vehicle is on the borderline, but it's got something, that's great. So you asked about the cost of vehicles and the exclusivity of vehicles. And, that's a problem that's challenging for us to solve because people experience, just burners come and they experience what they experience. If they see a big fancy vehicle and the vehicle doesn't have room, they're going to get an impression. And we do follow up when people report to us. So we get reports after the event of, oh, this vehicle was very unfriendly, or this vehicle, had wristbands and they were very, exclusive. And we'll do two things. One, we'll gather those reports and we will send in a message off to that mutant vehicle owner saying, hey, we got these disconcerting reports about how people were treated at your vehicle, and we really want to encourage you to find a better way of doing, interacting with folks. And we often have conversations where we explain, hey, we understand that you can't always take passengers, but how you tell people that is important. And you don't just say, if you just have some burly guy that looks like a bouncer say, it's for our camp only or whatever, that's not, or, we're full up, or is different than saying, hey, we're full right now and we're heading out to this, but if you flag us down some other time, we'd be happy to give you a ride. All it is being not behaving like your vehicle is, a nightclub.
I think we've found similar issues where the vehicles are at capacity. It's like this vehicle is built to hold 10 people. We already have 12 people on it, so now we can take more. But yes, if you see us later, flag it down again.
I'll tell you.
So
right
very
now,
that's how you respond to people.
Yeah, and right now we are dealing with some vehicles that we had enough reports on, and there are other problems with them that we go, yeah, that's exactly what they were doing, and we're going to be having some conversations with them.
This is probably a good segue into my next topic. Just general safety and maybe incidents that you've seen at Burning Man.
I literally that was the next thing coming out of my mouth.
I understand you guys have had some fatalities around mutant vehicles. If you want to speak briefly on that, and then maybe just go into like the more common safety incidents or issues that you have.
First off, the biggest safety issue in general is our event is so big and there's so many people, and driving a vehicle at night at this event is, I can tell you now there's some video on that link that I sent over of us, and when you are in a crowded area, it is exhausting. It is exhausting. It is nerve-wracking. It can be because you have 75,000 people, not all of them sober, not all of them well lit, not all of them moving in directions like they would move in a city, or there's no sidewalks, it is chaos. And on a busy night like a Thursday or Friday night at our event, it is and everything's blinky, and it's very chaotic, and it's very challenging to.
Yeah, I remember in 2024